public consultation on a new proposal to remove the taking of one's own life as a criminal offense is ongoing. The Cayman Islands Law Reform Commission recently issued a new discussion paper on the issue based on a recommendation from the Alex Panton Foundation. It's recommending revisions to the penal law to decriminalize the act of suicide, but retain attempted suicide and assisted suicide as offenses. Joining me now to break down what this means for Cayman is attorney Richard Barton. Mr. Barton, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Kafara.
Now, the big question is, and when we started to report this story, a lot of people were not sure that they didn't know that suicide was actually a crime here in Cayman. So if you could just speak to that, and a lot of people obviously didn't know that.
Right. So the genesis of this emerged in the early 19th century, where a lot of Commonwealth jurisdictions, including the United Kingdom, did criminalize the taking of one's life. And about 50 years ago, the trend began to be reversed. Okay. So countries such as the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Canada began to decriminalize the taking of one's life, which we refer to as suicide, and also attempted suicide, just to clarify. Assisted suicide is still very much, the perspective is that that should remain a criminal offense. So the proposal is to decriminalize suicide and attempted suicide, but to introduce legislation so that anyone who seeks to assist in the taking of one's life, when the suicidal offense is removed, that becomes a substantive offense rather than an inchoate offense.
Now, for the people that don't know, what exactly are the penalties, I mean, for actual suicide? I mean, what were the penalties in the law for this?
Well, the penalties, it's by virtue of the Penal Code and the interpretation law. Okay. So traditionally, you would have, for attempted suicide, you could have a period of term imprisonment. You would have what would be considered, if you were successful, unfortunately, in taking your own life, what would be regarded as a profane burial. And also your property, your estate could be subject to sanctions. And so you could see that that is not ideal. And in fact, even though it remains very much an offense, the fact of the matter is it has never been prosecuted. And I think the important point to underscore is that one should not be punished in such circumstances. There should be treatment and there should be prevention. That is where the emphasis should be, because if it is properly regarded as a circumstance of certain risk factors such as depression, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder, then if you draw the analogy for other diseases, if someone were to unfortunately die of other circumstances that are clinical, then they should not be banished or disregarded by what is a health concern. And so credit is to be given to the Alex Panton Foundation for
because they're the ones that are stepping up and saying, all right, something needs to be done about this. So
and just raising the awareness generally of mental health in the jurisdiction.
Definitely. So what are the next steps now that, all right, we're raising awareness, how are we going to take the next step?
The discussion paper is available and it was authored on the 12th of August. There is a window for discussions to be had by a date in October, and then I suspect it will move to various stages through legislative amendments and reform. I cannot conceive any body or group of people who would have an objection to this. And in fact, the trend is in keeping with where the proposal is. I think I read in the discussion paper that of the 192 countries, only 25 remains of the view that it should remain a criminal offense.
Mr. Barton, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for your time and talking about this really timely issue right now.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure being here.
Thank you.